Hello everybody! Thank you so much for joining me for a bookish video. I have not done a video featuring books or reading, well not featuring, but solely dedicated to books or reading in a long time on my channel, so today I'm coming at you with a quite extensive one. I'm going to be talking about all of the books that I've read so far in 2023. I have a reading goal to read 40 books this year and I've currently read 25, so I'm right on track for that goal, which is great. So I'm going to be talking to you about the 25 books that I've read so far. Hopefully I'm not missing any of them. I have them all categorized by month, so we're going to go through chronologically up until now all the books that I finished, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about them and what my thoughts are on them, what I rated them and everything like that. I am on Goodreads, so I'll link that down below in the description if you want to follow me there. I always update when I finish a book and when I start reading a new book. I will say that I do want to get on Storygraph. That's a goal of mine for the end of the year, to be consistent on Storygraph. It's another book tracking app. It's supposed to be a lot better. It gives you more stats, there's more options, and it's also a small woman-owned business opposed to Goodreads, which is owned by Amazon, and the interface just kind of sucks, to be honest. So I have a big stack of physical books that I have read this year right here. I do read in a variety of formats. I read physical books, as you can see. I also read books on my Kobo ebooks. I'll show you that. Oh my goodness. This is my Kobo. I love it so much. It's the Libra H2O and it's just fantastic. I love reading on here. It's so convenient, it's so easy, and it's integrated with the Libby app. So there's a train going by. It's integrated with the Libby app, which is basically an app that allows you to borrow ebooks and audiobooks from your library. So those just go straight onto here, making it super easy. I also use the Libby app for most of the audiobooks that I listen to as well. It's great, love it. It does stress me out sometimes though, because suddenly like all my loans will become available and then I'll have like 4 audiobooks to listen to at once, but it's fine. And then at the end of the video, once I'm finished talking about all the books, I thought it would be fun to unbox my Book of the Month box for August. This arrived the other day and I decided to save it for this video because I just thought it'd be fun to unbox together. I love getting my Book of the Month box. There's 3 books in here, so we'll see what those are. New books to be added to my TBR. I can't wait. So stay tuned for that at the end. Without further ado, let's just hop into the books. We have quite a few to go through. I'm gonna try to keep it as brief as possible while giving, you know, my thoughts on everything. So let's start in January. The first book that I read in January was Kiss Her Once for Me by Alison Cochrane. This is a little holiday romance moment, and look at how cute the cover is. Like, I love it. It's just adorable. Love the color of this book. Love how floppy it is, and it has like that matte kind of feeling, you know, that some covers have. So aesthetically, love this book. I also did really enjoy the story, which is great. I ended up rating this 4 stars. I started reading this the week of Christmas in 2022. I just wanted a nice, like, fun holiday read to kind of get me in the Christmas spirit. I'm not a very festive, Christmassy person, but I am a mood reader. Like, I save a lot of my scary books for the fall time, which is what I'm currently doing, trying to like build my list of what I'm gonna read this fall. But I figured, you know, let's have a festive little moment and let's pick one up. So this is the one that I chose. And this is a sapphic romance, marriage of convenience, fake dating type of vibe. This follows our main character, Ellie, who meets a woman in a bookstore on Christmas Eve. They have a really strong connection. They end up having this kind of whirlwind romance, like Christmas Eve romance, and then the woman just ghosts her the next day, disappears, and she never gets any closure or resolution of that. So she's down in the dumps about that, and she's also just down on her luck in life in general. She's struggling with her career, she's struggling financially, she has difficult family dynamics. And she ends up working in a coffee shop where her boss, or like the landlord of the building, ends up proposing to her that they pretend to get married because he's entitled to this inheritance, but the stipulation is that he needs to be married. So he tells her, if you do this for me, I'll give you a cut of the money. And she was like, okay, let's do it. So she agrees to it. And one of the conditions is that she has to go spend the holidays with his family at their what is it called, cabin, like spend Christmas with his family at their cabin in the woods, which loved the vibes of that. I loved all of the scenes with the family and just like all of the different characters in the family. It was very fun. Anyway, so she goes there and it turns out that his sister is the woman that she had the whirlwind romance with the Christmas prior. So now she's kind of in this situation of, do I keep lying and pretending that I'm marrying her brother and get the money, or do I come out with the truth and try to like perhaps reconnect with the sister? So it's kind of this like, not love triangle, but you know, those kind of, there's something going on. It was a really good book, fun book. Like I said, gave it 4 stars. I'm not normally the rom-com or like fluffy romance type of reader, which is something that I've really learned so far in 2023. I find that those books just aren't for me unless they're well done, but I like this. Anyways, I'm already going into too much detail, but yeah. First one that I read. I finished this in January, and the reason that I finished it in January, which, you know, kind of killed the vibes, because for me, after December 25th, Christmas is over. So reading this into January was kind of like, but I obviously really wanted to finish it. But the reason I didn't get to finish it is because I got COVID at Christmas time, and I was so sick. Couldn't even read a book. So I ended up having to finish this first week of January. But yeah, so this ended up being my first finished book of 2023. After that, completely changing gears, I decided to dive into ACOTAR, A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J Maas, which is a hugely popular fantasy series. This is obviously book number 1 in the series. I'd heard so much about it. I'm kind of wanting to dip my toe into fantasy a little bit. So I just, you know, I decided to give it a go. I ended up rating it 4 stars. This is such a popular book, so many people have read it, so I'm not going to talk too much about it. There's like so many videos and TikToks and everything online about this book, but the gist of it is that we follow our main character Feyre, who is a young human woman living in the mortal realm, and she gets taken as prisoner to live the rest of her life in the fairy realm. And as a human, she'd always been told how awful fairies were, how scary they are, just, you know, all of these like terrifying tales. So she is very scared and angry about being held prisoner in this fairy realm, even though she goes there and she's living in this like big fancy house. She goes from being in poverty in the human realm to living this like lavish life in the fairy realm. Long story short, she falls in love with her captor, and it's kind of this like fiery romance between them. This is a very spicy series, so if you don't like smutty books, I don't recommend, but like I said, I gave it 4 stars. I thought that it was a fun read. Am I obsessed like other people? No, but do I enjoy reading these books? Yes, because I'm now in the 3rd one, so I continued with the series and I gave it 4 stars, which is a really good rating in my opinion. A Court of Thorns and Roses is also a Beauty and the Beast retelling, which I didn't even realize until I heard that after, but then I thought about it and I was like, that's exactly what it is. After that, I read the sequel to this one, which is A Court of Mist and Fury by Sarah J Maas. Also gave it 4 stars, gets a little bit more action-packed, and is a continuation from A Court of Thorns and Roses. So I'm not gonna talk about the plot because that would obviously give spoilers to the first book, and I'm not giving any spoilers in this video. Next, I read Severance by Ling Ma, which, oh my goodness, you guys, Severance is so good. I feel like I can't even articulate all of the themes and just thought-provoking things that exist in this book. It was just amazing. I rated this 4.5 stars, and the only reason that I docked half a star is just because the first, maybe 1/3 of the book, it was very slow. I found myself getting bored, but trust me, if you push through, it gets so good. At least it did for me. So this follows our main character Candace in present time, which is during a zombie apocalypse, and it also goes back and recounts pretty much her whole life up until the apocalypse happens. I'm not normally somebody who would gravitate towards or want to pick up a zombie apocalypse novel just from knowing like that about it, but this was just so much more. It had so many thought-provoking themes weaved into it. It tackled issues like capitalism, the monotony of modern life, and feeling like you're just another cog in the machine. Is that the saying? Cog in the wheel? whatever that saying is, feeling like you're just like trapped in the rat race and there's no real meaning to your life. It has a whole layer of her parents' immigration to the US, her childhood growing up, how she's developed the mindset that she has, all the pressures that she feels. The writing in this is so sharp and quick-witted. I absolutely loved this. I don't know if this author has other books or not, but I would be very tempted to pick them up if she does. So I'll have to look into that. And I also flagged a review that I saw on Goodreads that I thought really summed up this book well. And it says, Ma wrote a zombie novel that seems to ask why fear the zombie apocalypse when we are already zombies. Oh my goodness, it gives me goosebumps. It's so good. I would love to own a physical copy of this book. I read this on my Kobo, but I need to own it. If you want a book that's really gonna make you think, I highly recommend this one. Next, I read How to Break Up with Your Phone by Catherine Price. I listened to this on audio and rated it 4 stars. This one is exactly what the title says. It's telling you how you can have a better relationship with technology and rely on it less and be on your phone less. The first half of the book I really liked, or the first like part of the book. It talks about just how much technology has influenced and changed our society, how reliant we are on it, how detrimental it can be, and how dangerous it can be. And I feel like I need to hear those things, you know, because obviously I'm very involved with technology and social media. That's my job. So I need reminders to turn off from that. So anything that helps me to do that is really great for me. Like, I love watching things and listening to things about that topic because I need to remember to live in my real life and not just my online life, you know? So yeah, I really enjoyed that one. Okay, moving into February. The first book that I read in February was The Family Game by Catherine Steadman, which I unfortunately only gave 2 stars, which kind of sucks because normally with thrillers, I love thrillers. That's one of my favorite, if not my favorite genre. And I'm usually quite lenient with them. Like, as long as I am entertained and it's somewhat unpredictable, I'm pretty happy. But this one just wasn't for me. It follows our main character, Harriet, who is engaged to this very wealthy man who comes from this like rich, influential family. He'd broken off ties to his family because they're problematic, but he gets sucked back in, so Harriet ends up meeting his family for the first time as they kind of reconnect, and as they're having this like dinner night or whatever, she's meeting the family, his dad takes her off to the side and gives her a cassette tape which has a confession to a crime on it. So Harriet is kind of trying to figure out like why did he give her this, and she's keeping it a secret from her fiance. So she's wrapped up in trying to figure this out, and she's also getting to know the family more and going over there more often, and getting wrapped up in more of their just like strange and scary antics or games. I don't know, this just fell flat for me. I found it really unbelievable. Like, I just couldn't imagine being in Harriet's position and making the decisions that she made. It was just, I don't know. It just didn't hit for me. This did take place, the novel took place at Christmas time too, so I think maybe if I would have read or listened to this in like November, December, I maybe would have liked it more because the vibes would have been there. But overall, I just didn't love it. So yeah, 2 stars. It is really hot in here, you guys. We are currently going through a heat wave and my camera keeps turning off because it's overheating as well. So I'm really hoping that we're gonna be able to finish filming this one this afternoon, but we'll see. So next I'm going to talk about Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid, whom I love. I love her writing. I think that she's so talented in creating a whole world, making it feel very real. So this is historical fiction, 70s rock band vibes. We follow our main character, Daisy Jones, who is this unhinged kind of party girl. She's a singer, and it follows her and the band that she becomes part of. The story takes us through their quick rise to stardom and all of the drama and problems that come with that, and all of the complex relationships between the band members and their families and everything. I unfortunately only gave this 3 stars. It was not my favorite, and I'm definitely in the minority for that. This is such a beloved book. But it's definitely my the one I've liked the least out of the 4 Taylor Jenkins Reid books that I've read so far. I think that a big reason for that was because of the way it's written. This is written like documentary style, so if you can see, Like it almost is like a play or something, like each character, their names and then what they're saying. It also has things like lyrics to the songs in here. I think that this whole thing is just, the way it's all put together, I think is really unique and really special, but it unfortunately just didn't work for me. I feel like because of it, I had a harder time caring about the characters and really getting into the story, whereas perhaps if it was written just in like regular novel format, I maybe would have liked it a little bit more and connected with it more. I did watch the Amazon Prime series and I loved it. It made me appreciate the book even more after watching that. I definitely enjoyed watching it more than I enjoyed reading it, which I feel like is normally the opposite, so I don't really know what to make of that. I don't remember if I even cried during this, but in the show I was like sobbing. At the end I was, oh my goodness, I was a mess. A lot of people love this though, so if it sounds intriguing to you, I would definitely pick it up. Or you know what I've heard is that this on audiobook is supposed to be phenomenal. So maybe listen to it on audiobook, because apparently the performances are just amazing. Like it's all different people who play the characters and everything, and they do a really good job. So I kind of wish I would have listened to it rather than reading it like from a physical copy, but yeah. Okay, sorry, I had to open the window. I hope it's not going to be too noisy. But the next book that I'm going to talk about, the next one that I read in February, was Normal People by Sally Rooney. And this is a bit of a polarizing one. People either love it or hate it. A lot of people think that this is overhyped. But I just think it's one of these things where it's like, the girls who get it, and I feel like I got it because I really enjoyed this one. We follow the story of Marianne and Connell starting when they're in high school. This book kind of spans over several years, but we start when they're in high school, and Connell is a very like popular, well-liked guy in school, and Marianne is kind of the opposite. She's very withdrawn. She gets made fun of by her peers. Connell's mom works as a cleaner for Marianne's family. They're also the opposite in like societal standards, I guess. Marianne's family is very wealthy and Connell's family is like lower middle class. So Connell's mom is the cleaner for Marianne's family, so he goes to pick up his mom, so he slowly is kind of exposed to Marianne and gets to know her a little bit more and develops a crush on her. So the two of them end up entering into some sort of relationship together, but Connell makes them keep it a secret because he doesn't want the other people at school to know, or like anyone to know, that he has feelings for Marianne and is spending time with her. And then we jump to when they're in college and the roles have kind of reversed. Connell is struggling socially while Marianne has become quite the social butterfly. She's kind of like in with the cool crowd. So we kind of follow their complicated relationship of disappearing from each other's lives, but then being drawn back together again. Like they just have this undeniable magnetic connection to each other. It's such a real and raw story. There's so many different topics and things to think about in here. It tackles mental health. It tackles like, I guess, societal issues. It tackles relationships of all different forms, like romantic, relationships with your family, relationships with your friends, feeling lost in life, kind of questioning things in life. It's just such a great book. I really enjoyed it, really loved the story. I rated this 4 out of 5 stars. I kind of want to reread it, and I almost think that I would rate it higher the second time. I don't know, I kind of want to reread it. One of the things that I didn't like about this book and that other people criticize as well is that it's one of these novels that doesn't use quotation marks for dialogue. So there's like, you know, a ton of dialogue in this book, but it doesn't have any quotation marks, so it kind of takes a while to get used to reading it. I don't know. I've read a few books that are like that with no quotation marks. I don't really know why, like what is the purpose of that? Kind of annoying, but obviously I got past that and I really enjoyed it. There's also a series at on Amazon Prime, I believe, video like television series, and it's so good. I'm actually watching it right now. I watched the first 5 episodes and then I kind of just like stopped watching it for whatever reason, but now I'm rewatching it and oh my goodness, it's just amazing. Daisy Edgar Jones plays Marianne and she's just so good. They're all so good. Like the acting in it is phenomenal, so recommend watching that if you liked the book, or just if you want something to watch and you don't want to read the book. I don't know. It's the only Sally Rooney book I've read, actually. I know she has a couple of other ones that people really like, which I am curious to pick up. I will do that one day, hopefully. Okay, the next book that I read in February was Convenience Store Woman by Sayaka Maruda. I didn't end up rating this one because I was just I had no idea what to rate it. I was so unsure of my rating, so to this day I just haven't rated it. It's a very interesting book. It follows our main character Kiko, who has worked in a convenience store for 18 years. I think she's 36 now. So she's worked there for 18 years and she really defines herself by this job. Like everything in her life kind of revolves around this job. She finds so much meaning and so much purpose in this job. Like it genuinely fulfills her. And we go back in her life, like back to her childhood, and she recounts all of these things that have happened that just made her realize that she's not normal, that she's different from other kids, different from other people. And she's always just been like struggling, trying to figure out how to just like be a normal person in society. So when she started working at the convenience store, she felt like it was very just like, it was cut and dry. She knew what to do. She felt like she had purpose and was contributing something to society. But now that she's entering her late 30s, she's feeling a lot of pressure from her family, from other people, just from, you know, society in general, to do something more, to have kids, to get married, to advance in her career, even though she has no desire herself to do these things. This is a really thought-provoking book. It's both funny and sad. We do have a very annoying character enter like halfway through, and after that I was kind of like, but I still think that this book is just, yeah, really unique and really interesting. It makes you think a lot about expectation and the pressure to just conform to this one thing. There's another book by this author called Earthlings, which is supposed to be very strange and disturbing, and it's been on my list of books that I want to read for a while. I'm definitely intimidated by it, but hopefully I'll pick it up eventually. And yeah, like I said, I didn't rate this one. I was so perplexed on what to rate it. Like, I don't know. It was just strange, but since it was so thought-provoking, I think that I would probably rate it a 4 stars. I wasn't like 5-star obsessed or anything, but I feel like 3.5 or 4 stars maybe. I love the character of Kiko. I'm just like, you know, I just want her to be able to do her thing, you know? You want to work at the convenience store forever? You go, girl. The last book I read in February was The Paris Apartment by Lucy Foley, which is a thriller, and I was quite surprised to enjoy this one as much as I did, because the other book that I had read by Lucy Foley was The Guest List, which I did not like at all. I feel like I maybe gave that like 2 stars. I think I read it in 2022. I don't know, it just wasn't for me. But The Paris Apartment, I gave 4 stars. One thing about me is that I love a thriller that takes place in a creepy house or building. Like, I just love the ambiance of that. The more character the building has, the better. This follows our main character, Jess, who goes to visit her brother in Paris, but when she gets to his apartment, he is nowhere to be found. So it quickly turns into a whodunit where you kind of get to know all the other people that are living in the apartment, and everyone's kind of like intertwined, and you get to know about all the skeletons in everyone's closet. So very fun mystery vibes. When I looked back on my Goodreads review, I saw that I said that I didn't like the ending, and I remember not liking the ending, but for some reason, I have no idea what the ending was. I have no idea what happened. It's just like disappeared from my brain. I wish I could remember. I'll have to look back, but yeah, for the life of me, can't remember what it was, but it sucked. Other than that though, I really enjoyed reading it. Okay, we are now making our way into March. The first book that I read in March was Before the Coffee Gets Cold. Oh, I actually have it. Before the Coffee Gets Cold by Toshikazu Kawaguchi. And this was probably my most disappointing read of the year, because I was so excited to read this, and this has so much hype. But even more disappointing than it being like hyped and not meeting my expectations was just the fact that I love the premise of this so much. This book takes place in a cafe in Japan where you can travel back in time. You have to follow a few rules. You have to sit at a specific table, you can't leave the cafe, and you have to come back to the present time before your cup of coffee gets cold. So I love that. I love that so much. So I was just, I was so upset about this one. it just fell so flat. And I think that a big reason, or I suspect that a big reason that it just didn't hit is because of the translation. This is translated to English, and I think that some of it just quite literally got lost in translation, and I've seen other people write this in their Goodreads reviews too. So it's just so unfortunate, but it just, I don't know, it carried no emotion. Like this follows 4 different people who go back in time, and it's supposed to be like these sad emotional stories, and I thought I was gonna be sobbing, but not a tear was shed, not a single tear. So just really disappointing. I feel like this was meant to make me reflect on life and make me think and make me sad, but it just didn't do any of that. So yeah, really disappointing. All right, next is actually my first 5-star read of the year, which is very exciting, and much to my surprise, it was a nonfiction book that I listened to on audio called Cultish, The Language of Fanaticism by Amanda Montell. So this book is about cults and kind of goes into detail about different cults through history, but it also talks a lot about how just like everyday things in our world are also meet the criteria of being a cult or use a lot of the same language to recruit people. So it talks about, you know, anything from MLMs to like fitness studios, you know, like SoulCycle and things like that. So I just, oh my goodness, I love this. I ate this up. I love anything about cults and psychological manipulation. I just find it so interesting. So yeah, I highly enjoyed listening to this one. Moving into April, we have another 5-star read, which is amazing, and I have a copy of it right here as well. Carrie Soto is Back by Taylor Jenkins Reid. Taylor Jenkins Reid redeemed herself with this one. Like I said, I did not love Daisy Jones and the Six, but I absolutely adored Carrie Soto is Back. Oh my goodness, and I was so not expecting to. If you would have told me, I would have been so enthralled by a book about a tennis player and that talks a lot about tennis, I wouldn't have believed you, but I was obsessed with this. This is Taylor Jenkins Reid's newest book. I think it came out in 2022. And it's the same kind of, it's historical fiction, it's the same kind of like time frame and world as some of her other books. Daisy Jones and the Six is like the same, existing in the same world and time as this. Also Malibu Rising. And what's the other one? The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. They're all in this kind of Taylor Jenkins Reid world that she's created. Like they'll mention each other in each of the books. They're not related. Like they're not like sequels or anything. You don't have to read them together. They're completely standalones, but there's like little glimpses of like the other characters in them. So it's kind of fun to read them all. I wrote on my Goodreads that this is my favorite Taylor Jenkins Reid so far, and I still stand by that. I still think that this is my favorite so far. One thing I love about her books is that she does a really great, morally gray character, which is exactly what Miss Carrie Soto herself is. So we follow Carrie Soto, our main character, who is a retired world champion tennis player. She was like the best of the best, but she's very unlikable. Most people don't like her. They see her as very self-entitled, very competitive, very rude. She is highly competitive and she's not like a warm and fuzzy person. So she had retired from tennis, but then somebody is attempting to take away one of her titles or like break some record that she holds. So she ends up coming out of retirement to try to like keep her name. I think if you love tennis, you will love this one, but even if you don't love tennis, like there is just something about the way Taylor Jenkins Reid writes her characters that makes them so just real and interesting and layered and complex. So we go all the way back to Carrie's childhood and we kind of find out why she is the way that she is, why she is so hardened to the world, why she's so competitive, her relationship with her father, who is also her tennis coach, and who has just really like shaped her to be the way that she is. We learn everything she had to sacrifice to get to where she is, just how hard she worked and everything. So yeah, really good. Carrie is such a blunt character, but I ended up really loving her. Next, I read A Taste for Poison, 11 Deadly Molecules and the Killers Who Used Them by Neil Bradbury. This one I listened to on audio. It's a nonfiction and I ended up giving it 4 stars. It was really interesting, but also really information heavy. So I feel like if I would have read this in a physical book, like I said, I don't do well with nonfiction in like actual reading form. But I definitely feel like if I would have tried to like read this in book form, I just wouldn't have made it through because it was very information heavy. As this one suggests, it is about 11 different types of poison, either, you know, things from plants or man-made poison. It talks about how they came about and how they have been used in crimes throughout history. If you like science and you like true crime, I think that you would really enjoy it. Next, we have my beloved Crying in H Mart by Michelle Zauner. This, oh my goodness, one of my absolute favorite books that I have read this year. I wrote that in my Goodreads review too, that it was my favorite book that I read so far this year. And what month are we in? We're only in March, but this is still one of my favorites books that I've read this year, or just like honestly of all time. It makes me emotional even just thinking about it. So this is a memoir, and I'm realizing that I really love memoirs. I'm listening to another one right now currently, which I'm not finished with yet, but I'm loving it. So if you have any suggestions for memoirs, I want to read, what's it called? In the Dream House, I think. I know that one is supposed to be so good. So yeah, I just love memoirs. I find them so interesting and so emotional, and just, yeah, I really enjoy reading them. So this one was no different. This is very grief heavy, so keep that in mind. I remembered listening to this. I often listen to audiobooks when I'm doing things around the house, like cooking or something, and I remember making dinner and just like sobbing, like almost can't breathe, sobbing in my kitchen while listening to this because it's just so emotional. So the author tells the story of her mother passing from cancer, and it kind of details her last, like, quite torturous moments of her life, and then all of the grief that came with that and came after that. She talks about her childhood, her complex relationship with her mother, and reflects on that a lot. Also a lot about growing up in America, being half Korean. The book talks a lot about food and how important food can be in like forming certain connections or memories, and the cultural significance of food and certain dishes. So it has a lot of passages about food and cooking weaved into it, and how these things related back to her mother and the memories of her mother. This is so honest and raw. Some of the things that she said, I was actually had the feeling of like, oh, like I can't believe that she's telling us that. Like that's just like such an intimate thought that people normally wouldn't be inclined to share with other people. I mean, I guess that that's the point of a memoir, but they're not always as, I guess some of them feel more real than others, right? But yeah, just an incredible, incredible book. I highly recommend if you want an emotional read. This also just makes you think a lot about life and what you value and what you spend your time doing, and the people in your life. It's just, I did see a Goodreads review. I remember after I read this, I was looking through the reviews and I saw somebody say that this book changed their life more than any self-help book out there. And yeah, that's just, it really makes you reflect and have a different perspective and appreciation for your life and the people in your life. I also listened to it on audio. I do have the physical copy because I went out and bought the physical copy afterwards. I liked it that much. But I highly recommend listening to it on audio because it's narrated by the author, and I just felt even more connected to it, and like that just added so much to the story, just hearing it coming right from her. So I highly recommend listening to it on audio. Okay, and then next I read 7 Days in June by Tia Williams, which had been on my TBR for quite some time, so I was happy to eventually get around to reading it. I had heard so much about this book. It was very hyped up, I will say that. It is a romance book, so it follows two authors who were in this kind of like very intense whirlwind romance when they were teenagers for a very brief amount of time, and then they lost touch. They haven't spoken for 15 years, and they end up reconnecting. So in present time, they're both authors, and they've actually been like writing books about each other throughout all these years. And then they end up reconnecting at this like writing convention or something, and they're like, stop writing books about me. You have to stop writing books about me first. I kind of love that premise. Anyways, like I said, this book was really hyped up, and although I did enjoy it, I gave it 4 stars. It didn't entirely meet my expectations. I feel like it was a little too hyped up for me. This book deals with a lot of heavy topics, but I felt like it almost was done in like a lighthearted way, and I wasn't expecting that. I was expecting something really hard-hitting and emotional, but this kind of, I don't know, it feels like a little bit more surface level, a little bit more just like, I don't know, lighthearted is like the only way I can describe the way that I felt reading it. It just didn't dive as deep as I thought it was going to. I thought it was gonna feel a little bit more serious maybe. I did love the story, and even more than that, I loved the characters. I loved Eva and Shane, the two main characters, but I also loved the side characters. It was really good. I rated this a 4 stars, so I did really enjoy it. It just wasn't necessarily told in the tone that I was expecting. I just had a different expectation in my head, which is fine. Okay, so now we're entering May, where I read my least favorite read of the year, which was The Spanish Love Deception. I feel like this took me a while to get through because, well, there was a lot going on for me in May. I was moving, but it was also just like so honestly kind of painful to get through. I was just not enjoying this at all. I ended up giving it 2 stars. Maybe it deserves 1 star from me. I don't know. Anyways, this is a fake dating, enemies to lovers kind of romantic comedy book, which this is one of the main reasons I'm thinking like maybe rom-coms just are not for me, because this surely was not. They just seem so unbelievable, and like the fake dating trope, that just feels very predictable to me in every book I've read so far that has that trope. And I guess sometimes it's more enjoyable than other times. But this one, I could not with the main character. This follows Catalina, who is currently living in New York City and working there, but she needs to fly home to Spain to attend, I believe it's her sister's wedding, and she's told her family that she's bringing home an American boyfriend. So she kind of has to follow through with this lie that she's created, but she has a really hard time figuring out how she is going to do that and who she's going to recruit for this role. So her coworker, can't even remember his name, but Aaron Blackford, he rolls up and is like, hey, I will do that. Like, I'm happy to be your pretend boyfriend and go to Spain with you. Like, let's do it. But the thing is that these two do not like each other. They do not get along. They're kind of like enemies, not really enemies, but like he's kind of her nemesis at work. So she's very resistant to this idea, but eventually she agrees and they go to Spain and blah, 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 blah. You can kind of see where this is going. Am I right? I just didn't like it. A bit of a snooze fest, honestly. Like I said, I thought the main character was just really annoying, didn't connect with her at all, didn't like her. I actually didn't really like any of the characters in this, so that makes it really hard to enjoy a book. Look at how thick she is too. Like, I wasted my time, for sure. I need to post this on Facebook Marketplace or something, or like donate it to a bookstore. That's another one that people either love or hate, and the people who love it and have hyped it up so much, I'm just like, what? Like, I cannot understand. I mean, I can, because I totally get and respect that we all have such different tastes when it comes to books. Like, even books that I recommend and I'm like, I love this 5 stars, other people are gonna rate it 1 or 2 stars, you know? That's the name of the game. So I don't know, I don't really know why I finished that. Maybe it wasn't as bad as I'm remembering, or maybe I just like really didn't want to DNF it, but that was how I felt about that one. And apparently that was the only book that I read in May. So we are moving into June. So the first book that I read in June was Happy Place by Emily Henry. And this is Emily Henry's most recent book. It just came out this year and there's a lot of hype about it, so I had to pick it up. This was my first Emily Henry read, and it is still the only book that I read by her. And honestly, I'm not too sure what to think. I feel like all of Emily Henry's books are very hyped up, and although I did rate this 4 stars, it didn't entirely meet my expectations or live up to the hype. I can 100% understand why people love her books. Her writing was beautiful. You can see I've tabbed a bunch. There was a lot of things that were really easy to connect to, but yeah, very, very well written. So that was something that I really appreciated about this book, and that in itself makes me intrigued to pick up her other books, specifically Book Lovers. I've heard that a lot of people like, and I don't know, I'm just kind of drawn to that one, so maybe I will try that one next. So this follows our main character, Harriet, who has been in a long-term relationship with her college boyfriend, Win, until one day they suddenly break up. However, they share a friend group, and their friend group goes on this yearly little getaway to a cottage in Maine. And that yearly get-together is a special one this time because it's going to be their last one before the cottage is sold. So it just holds a lot of significance. That place holds a lot of memories for all of them. So Harriet and Win don't want to ruin this experience for their friends, so they pretend to still be together and they go on this little vacation. So it's kind of like fake dating, but they're exes, you know? This book has a lot of really tender moments, a lot of relatable things that I could connect to, but there was also a lot of it that I just couldn't connect to and that I was just like, what? Like, that would never be the case type of thing. I think that the miscommunication trope is really just not for me because I can just never buy it. I obviously won't give away any details, but I also did find it kind of repetitive. Like, every night they just like went out drinking and Harriet was pining about their relationship and, you know. But overall, I did really enjoy it. I love the characters. I love the whole, I mean, I don't know if I say I love the dynamic of the friend group, but I kind of found the friend group and the problems in the friend group and how Harriet saw her friends and her friend group. I felt like I could relate to a lot in that because I have had my friend group go through tumultuous times and go from being like really tight-knit to kind of drifting apart, and just all the feelings that kind of comes with that, and different relationship dynamics, like romantic relationship dynamics that can happen in friend groups and how that affects the friend group and da. So there was a lot that I could relate to, and also with Harriet's career, she's I think in med school and it's just really unfulfilling and makes her unhappy, and she talks about that, and I could relate to that a lot as well because I used to be a nurse, work in healthcare, and it was very soul-sucking to me as well. So I appreciated that was in here because it was just obviously pertinent to my own life experience. Oh my goodness, I found my bookmark from Mooney. I didn't even know this was in here. That's where you've been. Oh my goodness, I'm putting this on my nightstand immediately. I just wanted to read one of the flagged. I did flag a lot, so like I said, the writing is really good in here. This is the quote that I think I shared on my Goodreads review. "This is how I used to think of love, as something so delicate it couldn't be caught without being snuffed out. Now I know better. I know the flame may gutter and flare with the wind, but it will always be there." I love that. Really good book. I think it was just maybe overhyped a little bit too much for me. Alright, after that we are moving on to a fun one, and it is Horror Store by Grady Hendrix. I had been wanting to pick up a Grady Hendrix novel for so long, and I kept seeing this one at the bookstore, and I just loved like how unique this one is, so I was like, you know what, I'm going for it, I'm picking this up. And I did it before I went to IKEA, which is kind of like, you know, we don't have an IKEA here, so it's kind of like an event to go over to the mainland and go to IKEA, so I was like, this is perfectly on theme. This is a horror satire that takes place in an IKEA-like store, and oh my goodness, it's just done so well. Like, the detail that went into this, oh my goodness, I gave this 5 stars, okay? And I really wasn't sure whether I was gonna love it because I find that from what I've heard, people either like really vibe with Grady Hendrix's writing or they really don't, and I just did not know what I was going to think. But no, I loved it. And I feel like it really tackled some deeper issues. Like I feel like there is some interesting commentary. Anyways, so this takes place in the like IKEA store. The main character is one of our employees. What is her name? Oh, Amy. It follows Amy, so she's one of the employees at this store, and every morning when everybody clocks in and starts their shift, they find that strange things have happened in the store overnight, and they have no idea what's going on. So the manager recruits a few of the employees to do an overnight shift and stay in the store overnight, which already sounds creepy as heck, but they have to stay there overnight and kind of just like keep watch to see if they can catch, like, is someone coming in there, like what is going on to cause this. The book quickly descends into haunted house vibes. It's like a weird haunted funhouse happening in this store, and honestly this got a lot scarier and a lot gorier than I was expecting. Like, I kind of thought I was just signing up for a silly goofy time, but no, this was unwell. This was scary. I was disturbed at parts, okay, very disturbed, and I will not be looking at an IKEA the same again. I thought that this was just so well thought out, so clever, so well executed. Like, even the format, like it's like a mixed media kind of thing, and it's made to look like an IKEA catalog. Like, are you kidding me? It's just, it's so creative and I'm living for it. All of the chapters have like a different feature, a different piece from the store, and they get like, yeah, you'll just, I don't want to spoil anything, but if this intrigues you, I recommend picking it up. I also have My Best Friend's Exorcism by Grady Hendrix. I picked that one up, oh my goodness, I think in June when there was a sale happening at my bookstore. So that's been on my list. I think I want to read it in September. I'm kind of, like I said, I'm trying to build up my list of like spooky, creepy, thriller, horror books that I can read during the fall. So if you have any recommendations of books that you think I would like for the spooky season, leave them in a comment down below. But yeah, I think I'm gonna read my next Grady Hendrix next month, which I'm really excited about. Next, I read How to Keep House While Drowning, A Gentle Approach to Cleaning and Organizing by Casey Davis. I listened to this on audio, and you can kind of tell what mindset I was in when I listened to this, because this is right after I moved. I was trying to put my house together. I was feeling very overwhelmed, so I was just seeking out anything that could provide inspiration. Unfortunately, I don't think I was really the target audience for this one. I don't know. I just didn't find the tips that applicable to me. I've seen people leave reviews that this seems like it's geared kind of towards like upper middle class suburban stay-at-home moms, and yeah, maybe that's why I couldn't really relate. Like, there was things like put a laundry basket in every room of your house, and it's like, okay, maybe if you live in this like huge freaking house, but for me, I just can't see how that would be solving any problems. I also just feel like I need the opposite of a gentle approach. Like, I feel like I just need a kick in the butt sometimes. Like, some of the advice will be like, oh, even if you have a whole pile of dishes, even if you only do one, like, that's great. But for me, I'm like, no, like, I have to do that. I have to be inspired or find the motivation to do the whole freaking pile of dishes, you know? And I'm not saying that the methods in this book wouldn't help other people, because I know that there's definitely people out there who it really would help, and this book is like fairly highly rated, so I just think it wasn't for me. I'm not really sure why I gave this 4 stars. Maybe I enjoyed it while I listened to it, but Next, moving into July, I read You're Not Supposed to Die Tonight by Kaylin Barron, and I talked about this in one of my vlogs, like more in depth. I had such a fun time reading this one. I ended up giving it 4 stars. This is a young adult summer camp slasher novel. We follow our main character, Charity, who works a summer job at this camp running this full contact horror simulation thing that people like pay to come and experience. It's all pretend until it's not. So yeah, bad things start happening and it goes downhill quite quickly. I really enjoyed this one. I read it fairly quickly. I really wanted something that was like spooky but also summer vibe, so that really checked that box. And also I liked that it was YA because it wasn't too scary or too gory. It was just a fun time, but I will say, and I wrote this in my review as well, that it uses a lot of Gen Z speak and like slang. So if you're somebody that doesn't like that, then probably not for you, but honestly, I really enjoy it. I actually like it. So yeah, really enjoyed. Next, I read Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid, and I listened to this one on audio, which I think this is the only Taylor Jenkins Reid that I've listened to rather than read in book format. But I listened to it on audio. I ended up rating this 5 stars. Taylor Jenkins Reid does it again. And yeah, so this is another book in the little Taylor Jenkins Reid world I was talking about. Historical fiction. Takes place in Malibu from the 60s to 80s, and we follow the story of 4 siblings who are fathered by a very famous singer called Mick Riva. It recounts their difficult childhood, their dad being in and out of their lives, their parents' very complex relationships, and even goes back to like their parents' relationships and kind of like why and how each generation ends up how it did, and all of the like personal problems that everybody has and their complicated family dynamics. I wasn't really sure if I was gonna like this one, which I think is why I ended up just renting it on audio, because I honestly didn't know what I was gonna think. Because what I had heard about this book is that it follows a famous swimsuit model and famous surfer, and it's like beachy vibes and whatever. And that it sounded very surface level to me, but it is not, my friends. This was so deep and complex and emotional. Another one where I was sobbing, cooking dinner in the kitchen. Oh my goodness, yeah, it was so freaking good. If you have or like stories about siblings and sibling relationships, or daddy issues, like have daddy issues, or I don't know if I would say enjoy reading about that, but I guess for me, I enjoy reading things that I can connect to and that just like really like hit me in the heart, you know? This book just did. So yeah, really, really good one. Next, I read The Collected Regrets of Clover, which I have right here, which was a book of the month pick. And I loved this. I talked a lot about this in one of my recent vlogs as well, so I won't talk about it a ton. I ended up giving this 4.5 stars. So this follows our main character, Clover, who lives in New York City and works as a death doula, so she kind of supports people through the dying process. She's really socially awkward and socially anxious and lives a kind of isolated life. Like, she really just goes to work and then comes back until she develops this special bond with one of her clients, and she really starts to reflect and assess her own life and question if she's really living it to the fullest. This one was just really beautiful and also really fun to read. It makes you think a lot about life and death, of course. And yeah, there's some quotes in here that I really liked. This did trigger my death anxiety a little bit at the beginning, which is something that I struggle with. But I pushed through and I'm glad I did because yeah, it was really great. Also, this one reminds me of Eleanor Oliphant is Completely Fine. It has the same just kind of vibes, like something about it just really reminded me of that. So if you like that one, maybe you'd like this one. But I also saw a lot of reviews of people really not liking the main character in here. I don't know, I wouldn't say I really liked her, but I feel like I understood her, you know? And then, my friends, did I even mention that we're into July? I don't remember if I said. We've been into July since You're Not Supposed to Die Tonight. But the last book that we are going to talk about that I read at the very end of July was The Only One Left by Riley Sager. And if you watch my camping vlog, which is the last video that I posted on here, I talked a lot about that book and was reading that book in that vlog. I loved it. Easy 5 stars. Oh my goodness, such a good thriller. I swear Riley Sager's books just keep getting better and better. There's still a couple of his that I haven't read yet, so I need to read those so that I can have read them all. Well, you know what? I DNF'd one of them, but I kind of just want to force myself to read it so that I can have read them all. Anyways, this is definitely a contender for my favorite book of the year. This and Crying in H Mart, I think, are my top favorites of the year so far. Like I said, I love a good thriller, and this book, like, you could hardly pry this thing out of my hands. I could not put it down. And that's just like such a fun and nice feeling to have while reading a book, to be like so engaged in it. So we follow our main character, Kit, who is a home caregiver, like a live-in caregiver for people, and she's assigned to a new client called Lenora, who allegedly, she's in like her 70s now, but she allegedly brutally murdered her whole family when she was a teenager. So Kit's very apprehensive about going to care for this patient, but she goes there, she goes to stay in her like big spooky mansion, and Lenora is nonverbal, but she can communicate via typewriter. And she tells Kit that she wants to tell her story about the night of the murders, like the truth of what happened, which has never been told before. Some things just aren't sitting right. Kit is starting to question everything, question the truth, question what's going on, and even question her own safety. Yeah, this book just had everything for me. It has the spooky gothic mansion vibes, which is on a cliff at that. So add in like the spooky ocean-side cliff weather. Engaging characters and incredible writing. It was the full package when it comes to a thriller, so I highly recommend picking it up if you want a fun, fast-paced, creepy thriller. To me, this book was the child of The Haunting of Bly Manor and Verity. So if you liked Verity, this was kind of the same vibes, but without any spice. Whew, and now we're in August, and we're halfway through August almost, and I have not finished a single book yet. So yeah, that's how it's going over here. I am currently reading A Court of Wings and Ruin, which is the 3rd in the ACOTAR series, and I'm currently listening to 3 audiobooks, I think, so I will do one of these videos again at the end of the year, like wrapping up the second half of the year, or like what's left of the year. I know I'm a little late on doing the first half, but now we're gonna move on to my book of the month unboxing. I'm so excited. I can't even remember the books that I picked, to be honest with you, so let's crack into this together. I'm actually severely behind on my book of the month books. I have a huge stack of them that need to be read, so maybe I should prioritize some of those within like the next few months. Hopefully by the end of the year I can at least have made a good dent in them. I'm just obviously buying them faster than I can read them, but I've heard people say they have 3 separate hobbies when it comes to books. One of them is reading them, one of them is buying them, and one of them is watching content about them, and literally me. I completely agree. Okay, so I've cracked her open, and this is the first one on the top. I'll pull it out. So this is called Vampires of El Norte by Isabel Cañas. And this is what it looks like. Oh my goodness, I'm obsessed with this cover. I am obsessed. I literally love the vibes of this. Oh, this is gonna be perfect to read in the fall. This is supposed to be like a gothic vampire horror intertwined with a love story, I think. Takes place in Mexico in the 1800s. Vampires are attacking this community or this village. I honestly don't know too much about it. I read the synopsis and I was like, yes, that sounds great. So I cannot wait to read this. Oh, she's so beautiful. And it's supposed to be like scary vampires, like monster vampires, not like Twilight vampires, you know? So that is the first one. Next, oh yes, oh my goodness, I'm excited about this one too. Oh, keeping up with the creepy vibes, this is a thriller by Lisa Jewell, who I've been wanting to pick up a book by for so long. I really want to read And Then She Was Gone, I think it's called, by Lisa Jewell. So I have yet to pick that up. This will be my first Lisa Jewell book. So this is called None of This Is True. And, ooh, yeah, stretch it out. I don't even remember what this is about. Okay, the little blurb says, when a famous podcaster interviews a stranger promising to divulge the story of a lifetime, secrets emerge that threaten to expose the truth of the lives they both worked hard to project and protect. So it's like, I think it's about a true crime podcaster who interviews this person and then it ends up like, I don't know, something happens where it ends up affecting her own personal life and it gets all like intertwined and I don't know, sounds really good. And Lisa Jewell is a really well-known thriller author. A lot of people absolutely love her books and have read her whole backlist. So I just, you know, when I saw it on Book of the Month, I was like, okay, sign me up. I need to try out my first Lisa Jewell. So that one, which these two are both going to be perfect for fall, so I love that. And then the last one, this actually might be good for fall too, or winter. The last one that I picked is called The Wishing Game by Meg Schaefer. And this, I'm not even really sure, like I saw this on Book of the Month. This was like an add-on pick from a previous month that I added on to this box. When it was actually released, it didn't really speak to me too much, but since then I've heard so many people review this book and absolutely love it, so I was like, okay, I'm gonna pick it up. It says, years ago, a reclusive mega best-selling author quit writing under mysterious circumstances. Suddenly, he resurfaces with a brand new book and a one-of-a-kind competition, offering a prize that will change the winner's life. So it's about like a book competition. Anyways, it's supposed to be really good. So I'm kind of going into this blind because I've heard people say it's really good, but I haven't really heard in detail much about like, I don't know what the vibes are of this, I guess. So I don't know. I'm really curious to read it and I will update y'all when I do. Whew. Oh my goodness, I cannot believe that I made it through this without my camera like combusting. Thank you so much if you watched to the end. I would love to hear any comments from you. I love chatting about books. I would love to make more videos about books in the future as well. Reading has become just something that is so near and dear to me that I enjoy so much. I hope that some of you can relate, and if not, I hope that I maybe inspire some of you to pick up a book. So that's gonna be it. Again, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!